November 22, 1963. Dallas, Texas, 12:30 p.m. President John F. Kennedy was shot and killed in broad daylight. The Warren Commission concluded it was a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, case closed. Except in 2017, the U.S. government released thousands of previously classified documents about the assassination. And even in those files, after 54 years, entire pages remain blacked out. What are they still hiding? October 26, 2017. The National Archives released 2,891 JFK assassination records, documents that had been sealed for decades, documents that presidents from both parties had delayed releasing, documents that, when finally revealed, raised more questions than they answered. Because here's what nobody tells you. Even after Trump ordered the full release, thousands of documents remain partially or completely redacted. Black bars cover names, dates, operations. Entire pages are still classified for national security reasons. 54 years after the assassination, 61 years since these documents were created, and they're still too dangerous to reveal. What's in those files? What truth is so explosive that, more than half a century later, it still can't be told? The official story is simple. Lee Harvey Oswald, a disturbed loner, shot President Kennedy from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. 3 shots, 1 missed, 2 hits. Kennedy died. End of story. But the declassified documents tell a different story. A story of CIA operations, mafia connections, Cuban plots, and a web of lies so complex that it took 60 years to even partially untangle. And even now, the full truth remains hidden behind those black redaction bars. This isn't conspiracy theory. These are official government documents, declassified, authenticated, real, and what they reveal should terrify anyone who believes in transparency and truth. Let's start with the facts that aren't disputed. November 22, 1963, 12:29 p.m. President Kennedy's motorcade turns onto Elm Street in Dallas, Texas. The route had been published in newspapers days in advance. Secret Service protection was minimal by modern standards. The limousine was open-top. Kennedy sat exposed. At approximately 12:30 p.m., shots rang out. The Zapruder film, shot by amateur cameraman Abraham Zapruder, captured the moment. It's the most analyzed 26 seconds of film in history. Frame by frame, it shows Kennedy waving to the crowd. Then his hands move to his throat. Then his head snaps violently backward and to the left. Brain matter and blood spray. Jackie Kennedy climbs onto the trunk of the limousine, reaching for a piece of her husband's skull. Governor John Connally, sitting in front of Kennedy, was also shot. He survived but spent the rest of his life insisting he was hit by a separate bullet from the one that hit Kennedy. The presidential limousine rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital. Doctors fought desperately to save Kennedy's life. At 1:00 p.m., he was pronounced dead. At 1:15 p.m., Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit was shot and killed in the Oak Cliff neighborhood. Witnesses identified the shooter as a man matching Lee Harvey Oswald's description. At 1:50 p.m., Oswald was arrested at the Texas Theater after a brief struggle. At 7:10 p.m., Oswald was charged with murdering Officer Tippit. At 11:26 p.m., Oswald was charged with murdering President Kennedy. At 12:21 a.m. on November 24th, Oswald was paraded through Dallas Police Headquarters for a midnight press conference. He told reporters, "I'm just a patsy." At 11:21 a.m. on November 24th, as Oswald was being transferred to county jail, nightclub owner Jack Ruby stepped from the crowd of reporters and shot Oswald in the stomach at point-blank range. On live television, in a room full of police officers. Oswald died at 1:07 p.m. at the same hospital where Kennedy had died 2 days earlier. The accused assassin was dead. The investigation had barely begun, and the only person who knew the full truth, if Oswald was indeed the assassin, took that truth to the grave. But what if Oswald wasn't lying? What if he really was just a patsy? Because when you look at the declassified documents, that possibility becomes disturbingly plausible. Here's the official story. Lee Harvey Oswald was a Marine who became disillusioned with America. In 1959, he defected to the Soviet Union. He lived in Minsk, married a Russian woman named Marina, had a daughter. Then in 1962, he suddenly returned to the United States with his Russian wife and child. No problems, no interrogation, no consequences. Does that sound believable to you? This was 1962, the height of the Cold War, Cuban Missile Crisis, spy paranoia at its peak, and the US government just let a Marine who defected to the Soviet Union, lived there for 3 years, married a Russian woman, and then wanted to come back. Just waltz right in. The declassified CIA documents reveal something far more disturbing. In 1978, the House Select Committee on Assassinations forced the CIA to produce its files on Lee Harvey Oswald. What they found was shocking. The CIA had opened a file on Oswald as early as 1960, while he was in the Soviet Union. They tracked his movements. They monitored his communications. They had an entire operations file on him. For a random defector, for a nobody. The 2017 document release revealed even more. Memos showing that the CIA's counterintelligence chief, James Jesus Angleton, personally oversaw Oswald's case. Angleton was the CIA's expert on Soviet double agents. Why would he be interested in a low-level defector unless there was more to the story? In September 1963, 2 months before the assassination, someone identifying himself as Lee Harvey Oswald visited the Cuban and Soviet embassies in Mexico City, trying to get visas to travel to Cuba and the USSR. The CIA had both embassies under surveillance. They photographed everyone entering and leaving. They wiretapped all phone calls. Here's the problem. The man in the photographs wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. The voice on the phone taps didn't match Oswald's voice. The CIA knew this. They documented it in internal memos. Someone was impersonating Oswald. Why? To create a paper trail connecting Oswald to Cuba and the Soviet Union, to make him look like a communist agent, to provide a motive for assassination. The declassified documents show that the CIA destroyed photographs and erased tapes related to the Mexico City incident. Why destroy evidence unless you're trying to hide something? In 2017, researchers discovered something explosive. The CIA didn't just have a file on Oswald. They had a 201 file, a personality file used for agents and people of operational interest. A 201 file meant you were an intelligence asset, either an agent, an informant, or someone being developed for recruitment. The CIA's own documents show that Oswald's 201 file was opened shortly after his defection to the Soviet Union. This type of file is not created for random citizens. It's created for people involved in intelligence operations. Was Oswald a CIA agent? Or was he being used as an unwitting pawn? The redacted documents don't give us the full answer, but they prove the CIA's interest in Oswald was far deeper than they ever admitted. But Oswald wasn't the only suspicious connection. The declassified files reveal a web of characters that reads like a spy novel, except this was real. In 1961, the CIA tried to overthrow Fidel Castro with the Bay of Pigs invasion. It failed spectacularly. Kennedy refused to provide air support, and the Cuban exile fighters were slaughtered or captured. The CIA blamed Kennedy. Cuban exiles blamed Kennedy. The Mafia, which had lost its casino empire in Cuba, blamed Kennedy. So the CIA launched Operation Mongoose, a massive covert operation to assassinate Castro and destabilize Cuba. The declassified documents reveal the scope of this operation, and it's staggering. The CIA created a program codenamed ZR Rifle, specifically designed for political assassinations. They recruited mafia hitmen because they had experience killing people, anti-Castro Cuban exiles because they were motivated, international mercenaries because they were deniable. The program was run by William Harvey, a CIA officer who had previously worked on the Berlin Tunnel operation. Harvey reported directly to Richard Helms, who would later become CIA director. The 2017 documents revealed over 100 assassination plots against Castro. Exploding cigars, poisoned diving suits, contaminated fountain pens, mafia hits, sniper operations. They tried everything, and they failed every time. Castro survived over 600 assassination attempts. But here's the disturbing part. The infrastructure to assassinate a head of state was fully operational in 1963. Teams of trained assassins, weapons, cover stories, everything needed to kill a leader in public. And then Kennedy was killed, using exactly those methods. The declassified documents reveal that Lee Harvey Oswald had extensive contact with two men deeply involved in anti-Castro operations, David Ferrie and Guy Bannister. David Ferrie was a pilot, amateur hypnotist, and CIA contractor who flew missions for anti-Castro groups. He knew Oswald. Multiple witnesses placed them together in the summer of 1963. Guy Bannister was a former FBI agent who ran a private detective agency in New Orleans that served as a front for CIA anti-Castro operations. His office was at 544 Camp Street. Lee Harvey Oswald's pro-Castro leaflets listed an address of 544 Camp Street. Think about that. Oswald, supposedly a pro-Castro communist, was using the same address as a CIA-backed anti-Castro operation. The Warren Commission never seriously investigated these connections. When Jim Garrison, district attorney of New Orleans, tried to investigate in 1967, he was ridiculed and destroyed by the media. But the declassified documents prove he was right. The connections existed. They were real. The Mafia connection. The 2017 documents also revealed extensive CIA cooperation with organized crime figures. Carlos Marcello, mafia boss of New Orleans. He was being deported by Attorney General Robert Kennedy's Justice Department. He openly talked about killing Kennedy. FBI informants reported that Marcello said, "Don't worry about that Bobby SOB. He's going to be taken care of." Santo Traficante Jr., Tampa Mafia boss who lost his Cuban casino empire when Castro came to power. He worked directly with CIA on assassination plots against Castro. Declassified documents show he met with CIA operatives in the months before Kennedy's assassination. Sam Giancana, Chicago Mafia boss. CIA hired him to kill Castro. He also shared a mistress, Judith Campbell Exner, with President Kennedy. When Robert Kennedy's Justice Department started prosecuting Giancana, he told associates, "The Kennedys think they can use us and then throw us away. They're going to learn different." All three mobsters had: 1. Motive to kill Kennedy, RFK's prosecution. 2. Means to kill Kennedy, they were professional killers. 3. Opportunity to kill Kennedy, through CIA connections. And all three were involved in CIA operations that gave them cover and deniability. But perhaps the most disturbing revelations in the declassified documents concern what the CIA knew before the assassination and what they did afterward. The 2017 document release revealed that multiple intelligence agencies had information suggesting a threat to Kennedy's life in the weeks before Dallas. Information that was never shared, never investigated, never acted upon. The Mexico City Cable. On November 9, 1963, just 13 days before the assassination, A CIA cable from Mexico City warned of a potential threat. The cable mentioned Oswald's visit to the Cuban embassy. It noted suspicious contacts. The cable was marked urgent. It was sent to CIA headquarters, FBI, State Department, and Navy intelligence. But somehow, this urgent cable about a potential security threat involving a former Marine defector with Soviet and Cuban contacts never made it to the Secret Service. The agency responsible for protecting the president was never informed. Incompetence or something worse. The Tampa plot. Declassified FBI documents reveal that on November 18, 1963, 4 days before Dallas, there was a credible assassination threat against Kennedy in Tampa, Florida. The threat came from a Cuban exile group with mafia connections. Kennedy's motorcade route in Tampa was almost identical to the route eventually used in Dallas, a slow drive through downtown with sharp turns and tall buildings. The Secret Service canceled the Tampa trip at the last minute because of the threat. They knew the danger. They knew the profile of the threat. And then they let Kennedy drive the exact same type of route in Dallas 4 days later. The Oswald impersonation reports. Multiple CIA memos, declassified in 2017, discussed the Oswald impersonation in Mexico City. They knew someone was pretending to be Oswald. They knew it before the assassination. One memo, dated October 10, 1963, specifically states that the voice on the wiretap did not match the voice of Lee Harvey Oswald. They knew, and they did nothing. They didn't alert the Secret Service. They didn't investigate who was impersonating a former defector. They just filed the memo away. The destruction of evidence. Perhaps most damning, multiple declassified documents reference evidence that was destroyed. The Mexico City tapes were routinely erased. The Mexico City photographs were lost. CIA cables about Oswald were not retained. Files on anti-Castro operations were destroyed per regulations. All of this happened in the days and weeks immediately after the assassination. When every shred of evidence should have been preserved, it was instead destroyed. The CIA claims this was routine, but declassified memos show CIA Director John McCone personally ordered some of this destruction. That's not routine, that's deliberate. And then there's the single most controversial piece of evidence, the magic bullet theory, the cornerstone of the Warren Commission's conclusion, and the part that, according to declassified documents, even the investigators didn't believe. The Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. Shot 1 missed completely. Shot 2 hit Kennedy in the back neck, exited his throat, then hit Governor Connally, breaking his rib, shattering his wrist, and lodging in his thigh. Shot 3 hit Kennedy in the head, killing him. That second shot, the one that supposedly hit both men and caused 7 wounds, is known as the single bullet theory, or more colloquially, the magic bullet. Here's why it's called magic. For this theory to work, the bullet had to 1. Enter Kennedy's back at a downward angle. 2. Exit his throat without hitting his spine. 3. Change direction midair. 4. Enter Connally's back. 5. Exit his chest. 6. Enter his wrist. 7. Exit his wrist. 8. Enter his thigh. 9. Fall out and be found on a stretcher at Parkland Hospital in nearly pristine condition. 1 bullet, 7 wounds, 2 men, 0 damage to the bullet. The doctors disagreed. Declassified interviews with the Parkland Hospital doctors reveal that they never believed the single bullet theory. Dr. Malcolm Perry, who performed the tracheostomy on Kennedy, said the throat wound looked like an entrance wound, not an exit wound. That would mean a shot from the front, not from behind where Oswald supposedly was. Dr. Robert McClellan described the massive head wound as being in the back right of Kennedy's skull, consistent with a shot from the front right. not from behind left where Oswald's window was. The Warren Commission ignored these doctors' testimonies. They decided the wounds must have been different from what the doctors described because otherwise, the theory didn't work. The Zapruder film, the most analyzed 26 seconds of film in history, shows Kennedy's head snapping backward and to the left when the fatal shot strikes. Physics tells us that when a high-velocity bullet strikes an object, the object moves in the direction the bullet is traveling. Kennedy should have moved forward if shot from behind. The Warren Commission explained this by claiming a neuromuscular reaction caused Kennedy's backward motion. But declassified documents show that the Commission's own experts disagreed with this explanation. The pristine bullet, CE 399. Commission Exhibit 399 is the bullet supposedly responsible for 7 wounds in 2 men. It was found on a stretcher at Parkland Hospital. This bullet is nearly intact. The base is slightly flat. Otherwise, it looks like it was just fired into a water tank, not through 2 human bodies and 3 bones. Ballistics experts testified that such a bullet should have been severely deformed. The Warren Commission dismissed their concerns. But here's what the declassified documents reveal. FBI ballistics experts wrote memos expressing doubt about CE 399. These memos were not included in the Warren Commission report. They were classified for decades. Why suppress doubts from your own experts unless you're trying to force a predetermined conclusion? The evidence problems don't end with the magic bullet. In fact, the more the declassified documents reveal, the more impossible the official story becomes. The Warren Commission concluded that Oswald fired 3 shots in 5.6 to 8.4 seconds using a bolt-action Mannlicher Carcano rifle with a misaligned scope. The FBI tested this scenario. They used master marksmen, some of the best riflemen in America, and gave them the same model rifle. None of them could match the accuracy and speed required, not one. But somehow Lee Harvey Oswald, whose Marine shooting scores were mediocre at best, performed this feat on his first try, under pressure at a moving target through tree branches. The rifle, the Mannlicher Carcano found on the 6th floor of the book depository, was, according to military experts, one of the worst rifles a person could choose for an assassination. Heavy trigger pull, meaning poor accuracy. Bolt action, meaning slow firing rate. Misaligned scope. The scope was 4 inches off at 100 yards. Cheap Italian military surplus, accuracy problems. Declassified documents reveal that the FBI had to shim the scope just to make the rifle usable for testing. If the scope was that misaligned when found, how did Oswald hit anything? The impossible timing. The Zapruder film, analyzed frame by frame, shows. Frame 160, Kennedy disappears behind a road sign. Frame 225, Kennedy reappears, clearly already hit. Frame 313, the fatal headshot. That's 88 frames or 4.8 seconds between reactions to hits. But Oswald's rifle required 2.3 seconds to work the bolt and reacquire the target. For 3 shots, that's minimum 4.6 seconds between first and third shots, leaving almost no time for aiming. The Warren Commission admitted the timing was extremely tight, but concluded it was possible. Declassified FBI memos show agents expressed skepticism. These memos were never made public in 1964. The tree. The 6th floor window had a large oak tree partially obstructing the view during the first part of the motorcade route. Declassified documents reveal that the Warren Commission staff debated whether Oswald would have even had a clear shot during the time frame they claimed. They resolved this by deciding Oswald must have waited for a clear shot, but that contradicts their timeline. If he waited, he couldn't have fired all 3 shots in the required time frame. The logic was circular. The shots had to have been fired in this time frame, Therefore, the tree wasn't an obstruction. Therefore, the timeline works. But perhaps the most disturbing revelation in the declassified documents is this. Multiple witnesses reported things that completely contradict the official story, and their testimonies were altered, suppressed, or ignored. The Warren Commission interviewed hundreds of witnesses. The declassified documents reveal that many of their testimonies were changed, summarized incorrectly, or simply ignored when they didn't fit the official narrative. The Grassy Knoll witnesses. Of the witnesses in Dealey Plaza who had an opinion on where shots came from, 51 witnesses said shots came from the Grassy Knoll to Kennedy's front right. 32 witnesses said shots came from the book depository behind. The Warren Commission's conclusion: all the Grassy Knoll witnesses were wrong. All of them. They were confused by echoes, despite many being military veterans familiar with gunfire. Lee Bowers. Lee Bowers was in a railroad control tower overlooking the Grassy Knoll. He saw two men standing behind the fence on the knoll at the time of the shooting. He reported suspicious activity, men moving around, a puff of smoke. His Warren Commission testimony was cut short. The questions stopped when he started describing what he saw. Declassified documents show the commission lawyers didn't want to pursue that line of questioning. Bowers died in a single-car accident in 1966 under suspicious circumstances. His death was never investigated. The acoustic evidence. In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations used cutting-edge acoustic analysis on a police dictable recording from Dealey Plaza. The analysis indicated 4 shots, not 3, and at least 1 shot came from the Grassy Knoll, not the book depository. This was scientific evidence using methods accepted in courts. It suggested multiple shooters. The CIA immediately attacked the methodology. Declassified documents reveal the CIA worked behind the scenes to discredit the acoustic evidence, funding studies to challenge the findings. Why would the CIA spend resources attacking scientific evidence unless they had something to hide? The Umbrella Man. In the Zapruder film, there's a man standing on the curb holding an open black umbrella. It was a clear, sunny day. Nobody else had an umbrella. He was at the exact spot where Kennedy was first hit. The Umbrella Man was never identified until 1978, when a man named Louis Stephen Witt came forward claiming to be him. He said he was just heckling Kennedy with an umbrella, a reference to British appeasement in WWII. But researchers have noted inconsistencies in Witt's story. Declassified CIA documents from the 1960s discuss umbrella guns, real weapons that fired poison darts and were virtually undetectable. Was the Umbrella Man signaling shooters? Was he firing a dart weapon? Was he just a bizarre coincidence? We'll probably never know for certain, but the declassified documents prove umbrella weapons existed and were part of CIA assassination programs. The Badge Man. Photo analysis of the Grassy Knoll area in enhancement of the Mormon photograph, taken at the moment of the headshot, shows what appears to be a figure behind the fence wearing a badge and holding a rifle. The Warren Commission never examined this photograph in detail. When researchers brought it to attention decades later, it was dismissed as shadows and artifacts. But multiple photographic experts have analyzed it and concluded there is indeed a human figure in that location. Declassified documents show this area was never properly searched after the assassination. Jack Ruby shot Oswald on live television. The official story: he was distraught about Kennedy's death and wanted to spare Jackie Kennedy the pain of a trial. The declassified documents tell a very different story. Ruby's mafia connections. Jacob Leon Rubenstein, Jack Ruby's real name, had extensive ties to organized crime going back to the 1940s. He ran guns to Cuban rebels before Castro, alongside CIA operatives. He was friends with Chicago mobsters connected to Sam Giancana. He knew Carlos Marcello's associates in New Orleans and Dallas. He was connected to Santo Traficante's operations in Cuba. Declassified FBI documents show that FBI informants reported Ruby was involved in organized crime activities in Dallas. The FBI knew this before the assassination, but the Warren Commission minimized these connections. Ruby's statements. Before he died of cancer in 1967, some say suspiciously fast-spreading cancer, Ruby made several statements. In 1965, to journalist Dorothy Kilgallen, Ruby said, "I want to tell the truth, and I can't tell it here." Days after this interview, Kilgallen died under mysterious circumstances. Her interview notes were never found. In 1967, Ruby said, "They're going to find out about Cuba. They're going to find out about the mafia. Everything is tied together." Just before his death, Ruby told his lawyer, "They plan to kill me. I'll never get out of here alive." He was right. The convenient death. Ruby died on January 3, 1967, just weeks after being granted a new trial that would have allowed him to testify openly about what he knew. His death prevented him from ever explaining why he really killed Oswald. Declassified documents show that the FBI never fully investigated Ruby's background or connections, despite clear indicators of organized crime involvement. In 2017, despite Trump's order for full release, approximately 5,000 documents were held back, either partially or fully redacted. In 2021, Biden delayed their release further. In 2022, more documents were released, but thousands remain classified or heavily redacted. Why? What could possibly still be too sensitive to reveal 60 years after the assassination? National security or national embarrassment? The government claims ongoing national security concerns. But what national security issues could exist from 1963 that are still relevant today? Unless the CIA was involved, and admitting it would destroy public trust. Foreign governments were involved, Israel, Cuba, USSR, and revealing it would damage international relations. The assassination techniques described in the document are still in use. Living people are implicated who still have power or protection. What we know is missing. Researchers have identified specific categories of documents that should exist but remain classified. 1. Full CIA operational files on Oswald. We have summaries, but the complete 201 file is still sealed. 2. Complete Mexico City surveillance records. Audio tapes, photographs, and reports are missing. 3. Full FBI counterintelligence files on Cuban operations. Large portions remain classified. 4. Complete Secret Service protection logs. Critical time periods are missing. 5. CIA files on anti-Castro operations in 1963. Most remain classified or heavily redacted. The fact that these specific files are still sealed suggests they contain information that contradicts the official story. Let's be clear about what we can prove from the declassified documents. Proven facts. 1. The CIA tracked Oswald extensively before the assassination and lied about it. 2. Multiple agencies had information suggesting a threat and didn't share it. 3. Evidence was destroyed after the assassination in deliberate acts. 4. The FBI and CIA fought the investigation and withheld evidence from the Warren Commission. 5. Witnesses were ignored or silenced when their testimony contradicted the official narrative. 6. Jack Ruby had extensive organized crime connections that were minimized or hidden. 7. CIA assassination programs, ZR rifle, anti-Castro operations, were fully operational in 1963. 8. The single bullet theory was questioned by the Commission's own experts. 9. Multiple warnings about threats to Kennedy were never acted upon. 10. The full truth is still being hidden 60 years later. What we can reasonably infer. The weight of declassified evidence suggests Lee Harvey Oswald was connected to intelligence operations, either as agent, asset, or patsy. Multiple parties had motive, means, an opportunity to kill Kennedy. The investigation was compromised from the beginning. Evidence was manipulated or destroyed to support a predetermined conclusion. The Warren Commission was more interested in closing the case than finding the truth. Today, thousands of pages of JFK assassination documents sit in archives, still marked classified or covered with redaction bars. The National Archives website lists them. You can see the titles. You can see they exist, but you can't read them. In 2017, we were promised transparency. We got partial transparency, pages with entire paragraphs blacked out, documents with names withheld, memos with sources and methods redacted. After 60 years. Think about that. The people involved are dead. The Cold War is over. The Soviet Union collapsed. Cuba is no longer a threat. The mafia families have been prosecuted. Everyone with first-hand knowledge is gone. And yet the files remain sealed. What truth is so dangerous that it can't be revealed even now? What secret is so explosive that, 6 decades later, it would shatter our understanding of government, democracy, and power? The declassified documents prove beyond doubt that we were lied to. The official story is incomplete at best, deliberately false at worst. Lee Harvey Oswald was not simply a lone nut. The assassination was not as simple as the Warren Commission claimed, and the cover-up continues. In 2029, the remaining documents are scheduled for release, 66 years after the assassination. But given the pattern of delays, 2017, 2021, 2022, there's no guarantee we'll see them even then. Maybe the truth died with Oswald in that Dallas police basement. Maybe it died with Ruby in his prison hospital bed. Maybe it's buried in the graves of CIA officers and mob bosses. Or maybe it's sitting in those classified files, waiting for a day when revealing it won't matter anymore. The files say classified. The pages say redacted. The government says national security. But maybe what they really mean is, you can't handle the truth. And maybe they're right. Because if the full truth came out, it would mean accepting that the United States government, intelligence agencies, and perhaps organized crime conspired to murder a president in broad daylight and spent 60 years lying about it. The files are partially declassified. The investigation is partially complete. The truth is partially known. But those black redaction bars, they're hiding something. Something that, even after 6 decades, someone powerful has decided we're not ready to know. What's behind those redactions? We may never find out, but the fact that they're still there tells us everything we need to know. The cover-up continues.